Commissioners.
Are you well?
I'm well, CJ, and how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Are you relaxed?
Not yet.
All right.
I have many butterflies in my tummy.
Okay, let's try and address that. When you became an attorney, were there already many attorneys in the Free State, in South Africa, who were women, and black women in particular?
No, Chief Justice. In the Free State, there was just one black female attorney that I knew, Mamuluko Kubushi, who is now a judge at the Gauteng High Court. She was the first black female attorney, and I became the second. At that time, they used to call me a rose amongst the thorns, because at my firm, I was the only female.
And you clubbed together at some point to form a firm.
Yes, CJ.
Now, what about work? Was good quality work coming your way? Were you the lucky ones, or did you experience the prejudice that many women and black practitioners have experienced over the years in relation to the distribution of quality work?
Yes, indeed, CJ, I experienced that. Work was allocated to me, but I soon noticed that it was just, from one stream: family law matters, collection matters, and so forth.
I noticed that you've been nominated by a body of women judges. Does that suggest that there's still contact? You still maintain contact with them?
I am, in fact, a member of that organization, CJ.
In your interaction with them and practitioners, including those who appear before you or appeared before you as a judge, judge president, even at the Supreme Court of Appeal, acting, do you get a sense that there has been meaningful change in relation to instruction giving and briefing patterns?
There has been an improvement, CJ, but we are not where we should be yet.
If you were to evaluate it in terms of percentages, considering that, say, 50%, I'm putting it at the bare minimum, of the lion's share between the previously advantaged and the previously disadvantaged, ought to give us some comfort that progress has been made. At what percentage does the change lie?
I'm not sure I'm following your question, CJ. Could you please rephrase?
You see, I'm saying we are moving from, at your time it was more or less at the level of zero.
Yes.
0% in terms of receiving quality work that your white competitors were receiving.
Yes.
Now that there has been improvement, would you say we are at 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%? At what level are we in terms of improvement?
I would estimate it maybe at 20%, Chief Justice. And I'm saying this because recently I was requested to go and give a speech on the challenges that young practitioners face. And I did not want to be anecdotal and, just go and give my own experiences, which I experienced a long time ago. So I contacted a few of them to find out what the position is. And the overwhelming majority of them say that they are still not getting anywhere near what they should be getting. So I would place it at 20%.
Now, with the constitution we have and the commitment we all declare, to its fundamentals, why is it that not all South Africans seem to be acting in keeping with the promises we all openly profess and embrace that are in the Constitution? Why is it? Why is it difficult to appreciate that we made a commitment to free the potential of each person, but when we give instructions, when we brief, nothing much seems to reflect the commitment we have made to that end? Why is it?
I think it's because a lot of things have become paper tigers in the sense that, CJ, verbally you are told that this is going to happen. We are going to make sure that we have an even distribution to avoid the historically skewed distribution of work and so forth and so forth. And most of the time, it is not monitored, and it ends there. I remember that in 2012 already, the Department of Justice had given a firm undertaking to give support to previously disadvantaged attorneys and advocates and females in general. But I mean, that was in 2012. And in 2017, there was an outcry to such an extent that there was a march by some by some legal practitioners to the union building to register their complaint. I was present at a forum where a protocol was signed, where various organizations were committing themselves to see to it that there is a redress. So I would attribute that to the lack of monitoring of whether that in fact happens or not.
I've just had a chat with the minister before you stepped in, and he was telling me that the statistics from the state attorney show, and he intends to share them with us, with this body, they show that 80% of the work that the state attorney distributes with fees reflected go to women and black people. But you acted at the Constitutional Court. How much of state attorney work, how much of the work that comes from state-owned enterprises did you see distributed to black attorneys and to black advocates and women? How much of it? I mean, forget about what you actually experienced while you were there. What was your experience?
Very few black practitioners appearing there, and especially very few female practitioners.
At times you would find that it's several state departments involved, parastatals, and attorneys and whites, seniors and juniors, however many, would all be white.
Indeed, CJ. And that was in 2015, but I was at the Supreme Court of Appeal from December last year to the end of September this year. And that was the case also at the Supreme Court of Appeal. So it certainly does not translate to seeing black faces or females at the court with the frequency that is desired.
So there seems to be some stagnating or retrogressive mindset that seems to have captured everybody who ought to be at the forefront of the transformational agenda that we're all talking about.
Indeed, CJ.
Why is that so? If you were to, what is the problem? Why does the action not match the talk? Even from those who were previously disadvantaged but now occupy positions of authority in government, nationally, provincially, local government, SOEs. Why is it? Because I heard that some ministers actually said, no, I want a white lawyer. Why is it? Do you know? Or are you as blank as I am?
I don't know, CJ. All I can say is that it's really a pity that that is the situation. But I'm still hopeful that it's a situation that will be redressed. but certainly there needs to be more monitoring of the situation.
And to monitor it, you need to be committed to the cause, isn't it?
Indeed, CJ.
And the idea has never been, never give any work to white compatriots. It's let's share.
Let's share.
Let everybody get a sense that they belong to that South Africa belongs to them.
That is so.
Anyway, you've been a judge for how long?
Since,
High Court judge.
since 2008, CJ.
And when did you become judge president?
With effect from I was recommended at the 2014 interviews and became judge president with effect from the 1st of January 2015.
So you want to abandon us at the heads of courts meetings? And then we have few women who are leaders in the judiciary. Is that fair to the judiciary?
CJ, when
Or are you making room for other women?
Definitely. I have actually made room for other women. There are 2 women from my division who have already acted in the position.
So you have a clear succession plan in the event of being appointed.
I started making a succession plan immediately upon my appointment, CJ, because I've always believed that any leader should have a succession plan. You never know what is going to happen. I mean, I could have died the very next day after my appointment. So
Yes.
I have done that, CJ.
Now, how did you experience arrival and acting at the SCA as an acting judge? Arrival, operating there. What was the environment like? Was it welcoming? Was it indifferent? Was it somewhat cold? What was it according to your own experience?
CJ, it was a mixed bag. There were colleagues who were going out of their way to make us feel welcome. And unfortunately, there were colleagues who were cold and unfriendly. I remember that.
Cold and unfriendly.
Unfriendly. I remember that at some stage, it was during the recess, I went to chambers, and there was a colleague there. I knew him, so I went to him and introduced myself. And well, he was cordial. And at the beginning of the term, I was walking around the passages and saw him approaching, and I greeted him, and he didn't greet. He said nothing.
Maybe he didn't hear you.
I thought so, CJ. I thought so, and he just walked past me. And I said to myself, okay, next time I'll make sure that I'm loud enough. And
Yes.
next time I greeted him, and he didn't respond. And I said to him, maybe you don't remember me. I introduced myself the other day, I am so-and-so. And he said, yes, I know you, and walked on.
A
So-
judge.
Yes, a judge.
Now tell us more about this negative experience. Obviously, you can't name
Yes.
and shame, but we need to know more about the state in which the South African judiciary is, so that even as we interview people, we are mindful, even as we recommend people for appointment, we are mindful of the kind of judiciary that we're building. If, for instance, if a judge treats another that way, the question is, what about the public? I had a very nasty experience with some of my colleagues in KZN. I said, wow, if they can treat me like this, what about members of the public? So tell us more about the negativity.
Well, relating to that same incident, CJ, it really bothered me. So I went to another colleague who had recently been appointed in the same court and said, this is what happened to me. And she said to me, don't worry, he does that to me as well. And I'm now talking about a colleague that has already been permanently appointed there. And it does have an impact on you, CJ. I mean, I come from a very collegial court. I have acted at the Constitutional Court. It was a very, very collegial environment. I have acted at the Labor Appeal Court. You actually look forward to going to the tea room and all the other courts. So for me, it was really a shock to find an environment where a colleague can hardly even afford to say hello when you say hello. But as I said, CJ, those ones are in the minority actually. Most of them are very welcoming.
Yes. President Maya?
Thank you, Chief Justice. Morning, JP.
Morning,
Are
President.
you well?
I'm well, thank you.
Apart from the unfriendly and rude colleagues, were you able to fulfill your judicial function? Sit in court, participate fully, go to conference, do the same, and produce judgments where you were expected to write?
Yes,
Did anyone
indeed.
hinder you in the conduct of that duty? Sorry, execution of that duty.
I did manage to participate fully in court and even in conferences. But I think I must mention this, that it so happened that I asked a question. I posed a question to counsel, and while I was waiting for counsel to answer me, the answer came from the presiding judge. And to me, it suggested that I had asked a stupid question. And because of that, on the same bench, there was another colleague who was also acting. So when she asked questions, I actually made it a point of looking at him to see his reaction. And it didn't give a good impression. So those are some of the things that happened there. But I told myself that I will not allow them to derail me. So despite the fact that he had answered my question, I repeated the question and said to counsel, I'm interested in getting your response to it. So I did manage to participate in court, in conference. I did manage to produce my judgments timeously. In one matter where I wrote a judgment, my first draft was well received. Both colleagues said that it was well crafted.
Now, as a head of court in your own right, what advice would you give me in my effort to improve things in that court? What could I have done to make your stay easier?
Well, President, to be quite honest, you did your best that you could have done under the circumstances. You went to the chambers of the acting judges to put us at ease. You inquired whether we were comfortable. We shared some of our problems with you. I remember at one stage I went to you and I said to you, here is a colleague that is communicating with me via his secretary. We have already had a meeting, and at that meeting it was agreed that if you are aggrieved by the conduct of any colleague, you should confront him or her. So I went to you and said to you, now that we have agreed that if there's a situation like that, you can confront the colleague in question, can I do so? Because I wanted to make sure that I'm not stepping on anybody's toes. And you said, well, that was the agreement. That was the resolution of a meeting, so go ahead, and I went.
But the difficult thing is changing people's attitudes. How do we stop them from behaving badly towards colleagues and practitioners who appear in that court and litigants behind those practitioners? What do we do?
The solution, as I see it, I thought about it long and hard while I was there. And I said to myself, you know, you can't change people's personalities. Let's face it, we differ. Some people are affable, others are not so friendly. But I thought to myself that perhaps fostering collegiality by actually encouraging colleagues to have social interactions could help. I'm not saying that it will. It could help. At our division, on every Wednesday, we agreed every Wednesday we meet in the tea room for lunch. You bring your own lunch box and we just sit together and chat. Not everybody attends because sometimes you have things that you have to attend to during your lunch break, but the vast majority of the colleagues are attending. And actually you look forward to a session like that. And I'm thinking, fortunately in our division, they all participate. But I'm thinking if you could have something like that, the unfriendly colleagues could perhaps feel out of place when they see that they are left out. And maybe they could, on their own, start joining in. That's what I'm hoping for. I think that it might sound maybe like you're going, it's a losing battle, but maybe you should try it out to say, even if it's not once a month, maybe just, so even if it's not weekly, just once a month, have a session like that. We even have end of the year functions that are completely informal, where we invite our spouses and partners. And I remember on one occasion, it was actually a sleepover function at a guest farm some 200 kilometers from Bloemfontein. And I remember when I was telling a colleague from the Western Cape about it, she was very, very surprised and said that all we do is to have a formal lunch as the end of the year function, and that's it. But we really get along, and I think that you could try that.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, President. You know,
Oh,
JP.
sorry, just one more question, Chief Justice. One more question, JP, sorry. There is an advocate, Maluleke, who has objected to your candidacy.
From Limpopo.
Can you just explain to us what that complaint is all about?
Yes, President, I'm a member of the Judicial Conduct Committee. And the Judicial Conduct Committee is chaired by the Deputy Chief Justice. And when complaints are received, they are channeled to the Deputy Chief Justice, and he then decides on 2 members that will attend to a particular complaint as a first committee to see whether there is any merit in the complaint. And so it so happened that I dealt with the complaint of Advocate Maluleke together with Ponen J. It was channeled to us by the DCJ to see whether there was merit in the complaint. And we both assessed it and assessed the merits and demerits and decided that it was a frivolous complaint. And we then dismissed it. I happened to be the scribe because we take all complaints seriously, and so when you make a decision, it's a decision in writing. So I was the scribe, I wrote the decision, and he agreed with me. And I must maybe mention that there, in as far as the complaint process is concerned, the right of appeal is automatic. So even where a complaint has been dismissed, it's never the end of a matter, it's never prejudice to a party because there's an automatic right of appeal to 3 judges of that committee. That's what happened there, President.
Is there any procedure that you failed to observe in adjudicating the complaint?
He states that I did not observe the audi alteram partem rule. But you see, he filed an affidavit with annexures. We read the affidavit, we considered his affidavit, and so we considered his complaint. And with respect, I don't think there's any basis for saying the audi alteram partem rule was not observed. his version was taken into account.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, President. You know, JP, what you're raising worries me a lot. I react very sharply to any form of unfairness or injustice when it comes from a judge. And I'll tell you why. If you can manifest unfairness to a colleague, disrespect to a colleague as a judge, what about members of the public? When they litigate before you and you have this mindset, you have this ingrained capacity for injustice and unfairness, the desire to deal with some people or show them that they don't belong, what kind of judgment are you going to produce? Are you not going to decide and then look for reasons for dealing with this person that you dislike? That is the problem about colleagues that you are alluding to. And maybe we should find a way to know them. What kind of justice do we get from there? That's my worry.
Yes, CJ, if I may respond to that, collegiality is very, very important, and it is emphasized. You have a look at the Bangalore principles of judicial conduct, collegiality is emphasized. Our own judicial code of conduct, it is emphasized, and it says that we must foster collegiality. Collegiality is very important, especially in an appellate court, CJ, because we have different views, we have divergent views. We should be able to have an open discussion, an engagement, where I am free to say whatever it is, to express my view without the worry that you are going to judge me and say, this is a stupid view. And I read, and I mean, there are a number of articles that have been written by even retired judges of appellate courts that emphasize the importance of collegiality. And CJ, if I may make this example, because at the High Court we have appeals where it's 2 judges sitting. If there's no collegiality between those 2 judges, then there's not going to be any engagement. I will come with a stance, my colleague will come with a stance, and there will not be any fruitful debate, and we'll then say, okay, well, we can't agree. What does it mean to the litigants? To the litigants, it means they must come back again, because then the matter must be enrolled again, now before 3 judges, so that it can be argued. We all know that litigation is very, very expensive. So, I mean, that's expense, that's also time consuming.
Thank you, JP. Minister?
Thank you, Chief Justice. Please allow me, Chief Justice, to just put 1 or 2 points in perspective to illustrate the point around the issue of transformation. Firstly, I want to confirm that it is true that according to the audited statistics held by the state attorney that are published on the website of the department, which are open for anybody to look at, of the work that goes through the state attorney's office in particular, 80% of that goes to historically disadvantaged categories. But qualifying that on the basis that not all work of the state goes through the state attorney. So your parastatals, some provinces, certainly your big metros and many municipalities do not litigate through the state attorney, and that's something we're working on, because even the state attorney has its own inefficiencies that need to be addressed as well. So it's an all-round issue. But given and accepting the challenges of the state in this regard, is it not so that there is still a resistance within the profession itself, both the bar and the sidebar, in ensuring the inclusion of black people, women, black women in particular, from participation, meaningful participation in the work of big law firms, in the work of counsel who should tag along those that are not experienced to acquire the necessary experience?
Thanks, Minister. I don't have any personal experience of that, the resistance, in other words, because I'm not on the ground in as far as that is concerned, so I can only go by what I am informed about and what I read about. And what I have been informed about and what I have read is that there is, in fact, such a resistance.
Do you believe that state intervention through legislation is the way to go to compel counsel, to compel law firms to ensure that there is full inclusivity, or is it a matter that you believe is best dealt through self-regulation within the professions themselves?
Well, Minister, as a last resort, perhaps that's something that needs to be done, because measures have been put in place and they don't seem to be working. Or they are yielding very, very few results.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you, Minister. Commissioner Ngozi Thomas.
Thanks. Thanks.
Please proceed, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Justice. Good morning, Madam JP.
Good morning, Commissioner.
My question goes to institutionalized chauvinism and sometimes racism. And I pick up from the answer that you provided to the Chief Justice about the visibility or lack thereof of African counsel and female counsel in particular in the Superior Court, SCA, and the Constitutional Court. And my question is, could it be that the category of judges that are characterized as rude and intemperate are also contributory to this lack of visibility? Because if one were to appear and be treated in a rude fashion, in an intemperate fashion, would-be clients would be loath to approach that counsel going forward. Now, shouldn't we talk to the judiciary as well and say, judiciary, please work with us and not put the blame solely at the door of government, et cetera, et cetera?
Thank you. I take your point, but I'm wondering whether there is much that the judiciary can do, much more that the judiciary can do, other than to lament, as we've been doing all these years. You must remember that the judiciary is responsive. Complaints are brought to us in court and we deal with them. I'm just wondering to myself whether there is any role that the judiciary itself can play in this regard.
Now, her question is there, let me put it bluntly, is the rudeness of some of us, does the rudeness of some of us not discourage transformational agents from developing, from appearing before us as regularly as they should, therefore undermining the very transformation agenda that we saying we are embarking upon?
Definitely. It does, CJ, and it needs to be attended to. I think it's one of the contributing factors, CJ.
So how would you propose that that issue should be dealt with in order to clear the way for this transformation project?
Yes. I would propose that the victims of conduct like that should not suffer in silence. They should actually report it, because that actually is a breach of our judicial code of conduct. And I think if we start dealing with it on that basis, a lot of us will do some introspection and will shy away from conduct that can land us before a disciplinary body.
What remains for me to do, this is my last comment, Chief Justice, is to congratulate you. Your profile is very impressive, and to wish you all the best. And I trust that your acting stint in the Constitutional Court has prepared you for this position that you are aspiring towards.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And yes, I agree. It was a very enriching experience and it did prepare me. Thank you.
Are you saying that it is your experience that unfriendliness and arrogance does manifest itself when judges are presiding? Because we used to be victims of that many years back. Does it still happen in open court? Oh, and people are not complaining. Does it happen in your division?
No, CJ, I haven't seen it in our division. And even at the Supreme Court of Appeal, I haven't seen many instances of it. I have seen colleagues being impatient.
Yes.
With counsel, but I would not say I have really seen it happening. I know that we have been warned by the Constitutional Court in the case of Absa versus Bennett, because there were complaints with regards to the manner in which some of the judges of
A particular judge.
Yes, a particular judge of that court had conducted himself during the argument of the appeal.
Yes. Very well. Commissioner Msomi?
Thank you so much, CJ. Morning, JP.
Good morning, Commissioner.
JP, I must also just add my congratulatory note. Your CV is quite impressive. Your profile, well done.
Thank you, Commissioner.
When you join or assume a position, you assume a position, a 9 out of 10, I could be wrong as a leader, you set yourself targets that you want to achieve.
Yes.
I'm looking at you. You joined in 2015 as the JP of the Free State. And I can imagine you will have set yourself goals.
Yes.
And the reason why you are now availing yourself for a higher position, I can imagine you are saying, this is what I wanted to achieve. I've achieved it. It's time to go. What was it? Why do you want to go? It looks like, to me, it's too short a period of time for you to go. Perhaps, I'm not sure you are needed there more to consolidate, continue with your transformational agenda, which seems to be going very well, before you avail yourself for a higher office.
Yes. As I said in response to the question from the Chief Justice, I started planning from the get-go. And there are certain goals that I set for myself, and this is an interview process, and the CJ has often said people are allowed to blow their own trumpet, so I'm going to do that and say that the statistics of our division speak for themselves. The division is doing very well. On a number of occasions, it was voted #1 in the country. I recently had a meeting with the provincial heads of court, in other words, the cluster leaders and the regional court president. The division is doing very well. We also recently, this year, had a survey where practitioners had to complete a form to rate us. Those who submitted their forms, the vast majority of them are impressed with the service delivery in our division. We receive accolades all the time, and I share these accolades with my colleagues so they all know about them, that when we have counsel coming from other provinces, they usually commend us on the quick turnaround time in the division, on the management of the division, on the role allocation, and so on. You'll recall that the query or the gripe, if I may put it that way, that was raised with regards to our division in the last interviews was the roll. So I made that my priority. And the roll is issued timeously. The records of appeal are issued timeously to the judges. The case files are given to the judges timeously. So the division is really running like a well-oiled machine. And I had a session with the Deputy Judge President, Judge Musi, where we both sat down and assessed the performance of the division. And we are both very happy with the performance of the division.
No, thank you so much. I think that gives us comfort that
Yes.
you have done so well.
Yes, may I add something, sorry, to say, if you have set goals for yourself and you achieve them and you are happy with the product that you have, then there's no reason why you cannot aspire to go and plow your trade elsewhere. That happened with Judge President Mlambo. He was the Judge President at the Labor Court, and he achieved a lot at that court, and in 2 years' time, he left that court and became the JP of Gauteng. So there's also a precedent for that, and he left, and that court did not collapse. So I'm quite sure that if I am recommended for appointment, the division will be in good hands, and it will not collapse.
Brilliant answer if I were to score you 10 out of 10. Second question, and perhaps it's a question that has not been delved into by other commissioners, and that is a question around what I would call your legal brain. To any doubting Thomas, please again gloat as you have just done now. To a doubting Thomas who says perhaps jurisprudentially you are not fit to go to the SCA, please tell us about the significant judgments or judgment you have done or you have handed down, which develops our jurisprudence and it develops our common law, so that whoever is looking at you is not going to say, she's not only a good manager, but she's a giant amongst giants when it comes to the legal fraternity. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, there are a number of judgments that I have authored. I must maybe say this, that even unanimous judgments of courts, even the highest court, sometimes get criticized. Judgments get criticized all the time. And we as judges accept it and take it in our stride. So I'm quite sure that there might be views that a particular judgment had certain flaws, but certainly the vast majority of comments that I received were that they were good judgments. Without wasting time by, quoting judgment by judgment, I would just refer you to the judgments that have been commented upon by the legal bodies. One of them, of course, is the judgment of Pilani, a very recent judgment that I authored at the Supreme Court of Appeal, which was very, very well received, where I was getting calls from magistrates who were also commending me about the judgment.
Colleagues, let me just caution against something, and I'm sure it will be well received. Many years back, when Dr. van der Merwe was a member of this body, he would often say, you are a good judge. That's why I'm going to vote for you. And as soon as I took over, I said, this must stop. Because you congratulate some candidates, you don't congratulate others. The perception is this one is definitely going to be voted for. In circumstances where other candidates are still coming, your objectivity might unfairly be questioned. So let's keep our appreciation inside of our hearts, elicit favorable information, and then you can praise them behind closed doors. Please. That's important, because we haven't congratulated anybody so far. please. Commissioner Mpofu?
Thank you, CJ. So I'll cut out the congratulations.
And the preamble.
And the
Their
preamble.
preambles are
Yeah.
increasing, I notice.
Thank you. No, CJ, what I'll do is I'm not sure if you were in the panel of the Mabel Jansen case.
Yes, I was.
You were, yes. Okay. I found that very traumatic, representing the complainants in that case. And the reason I'm asking you that question is what you have said about collegiality, and also what you have said about that people should not suffer in silence, which is correct. I'm wondering whether, well, two questions which are related. One is, doesn't this mean that this should not just be a question of, oh, well, so-and-so did not greet me, and you kind of take it on the chin? It's actually a breach of the duties of being a judge, one of which is, as you've correctly pointed out, collegiality. So shouldn't we maybe tighten our rules of conduct in that regard, so that it's not just something that happens in passing, number one. Number two, of course it would be inappropriate here to say so-and-so did not greet me in the passage and so on. But is there room for you to share that kind of information with somebody like the Chief Justice on a confidential basis?
Yes.
Because it's quite a direct affront, I think, to what judges should be, as the CJ pointed out.
Yes, thank you. I will share that information confidentially with the Chief Justice. In terms of tightening the rules of conduct, it's there already. Complaints must be lodged where there's a need to do so.
But just interjecting, I suppose, once the name is out, the President and I can confront those judges, and if they persist, expose them. Let the public know the kind of judges they are.
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Fori?
Thank you, Chief Justice. Good morning, JP.
Good morning, Commissioner.
You look a lot more relaxed now than earlier. JP, when we interviewed you in October 2014 for the position of Judge President of the Free State.
You are a bit too soft there, Commissioner. Maybe draw the mic closer, or let it be on the direction you are facing as you speak.
Yeah. When we interviewed you in October 2014 for the position as Judge President of the Free State, I shared my view with you that a Judge President should be at his or her court and devote his or her time to the court, like a captain should be with a team and on the field with a team.
Yes.
You agreed with me at the time, and part of your answer to that was, for some time I would like to devote 100% to my division, especially because there are a few problems. Now, if I look at your questionnaire, when you completed it in December of 2017, since you were appointed JP, you acted in the Constitutional Court and in the Supreme Court of Appeal. You actually acted in the Constitutional Court for 5 months from the time that you were appointed as JP, and for the bigger part of 2017, you acted in the Supreme Court of Appeal. I calculated to be a period of about 15 months. So for a very good portion of the time that you've been Judge President, you could not have been the captain that were on the field with the team. I would like to canvass that with you. Is that desirable? Have you been able to devote 100% to your division, as you said in your October interview? And if not, why not?
Well, I have been able to dedicate 100% of my time to my division. The interviews were conducted in October of 2014. And immediately when I went back to the division, I was given the task of preparing the role. As I mentioned, the biggest problem there was the role. So I started doing that in October 2014 already. I was invited to act at the Constitutional Court in January 2015. If you have a look at my transcript, you will see that at some point there was a question about acting. And I did say at that stage that acting is so beneficial. It's beneficial to you as the person who's acting there because it gives you personal growth. It's also beneficial to your team, wherever you come from, whether you come from the magistracy, the bar, the sidebar, because when you go back, you are not the same person you were when you left in terms of experience. There's a saying that, and I think it was made by a judge, Judge Holmes, that a mind, once it has been stretched to new dimensions, it will never be the same again. You go back there, your colleagues there respect you because they know you have acted at the highest court in the country. They approach you for advice, for consultations, you give them. That benefits the entire administration of justice. Now, the entire time I was at the Constitutional Court, I kept in touch with my division. Emails will bear me out. The entire time I was at the Supreme Court of Appeal, I kept in touch with my division, and in that regard, the emails will also bear me out. With regards to Bloemfontein, to the Supreme Court of Appeal, my division is also in Bloemfontein. I kept close contact with the Deputy Judge President, and I think he'll bear me out. We spoke, I think, every single day. I normally have a hands-on approach. In fact, when we had a discussion, he is the one that mentioned that you have a hands-on approach. And so my division did not miss out because of the fact that I was acting. Now, here is the third advantage of acting. When you go and act, you create a vacancy. I left the division, acted there, created a vacancy for somebody to act in my position. 2 ladies, in fact, 3 ladies have acted in the position, and 2 gentlemen have acted in the position. And that has benefited the division so much because then we have many judges that share the same vision in terms of the leadership and the direction of the division. So my acting stints have actually benefited the division. Not only the division, they have also benefited other candidates. I've mentioned the number of candidates who acted either as JP or DJP, and I have 22 ladies who, in that period, acted in the division at my invitation. And I think that's a very, very good achievement. If you consider that my division is a relatively small division, to have had 22 women acting in that time, I think it's something good that happened there. So my answer to you is that although I might not have been physically present in the division, my footprint was always firmly there, and it was followed by whoever was acting in the division. I remember that when I was acting at the Supreme Court of Appeal, and I have always considered myself part of my division, irrespective of where I'm acting. When I was at the Supreme Court of Appeal, I missed 1 or 2 emails that stated that there was going to be a celebration of Heritage Day. And I heard on the day, and I was already in chambers at the Supreme Court of Appeal. I went to court, and when I came back to court, it was 12:30, I think, when I heard the news. I rushed home to go and change, because when we have occasions like that, we wear traditional attire. Because I'm part of a team, I rushed home to go and change to be like the rest of the team members and went there. And yeah, I think I'll leave it at that.
Justice, I'll leave it at that as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Faure. Now, a leading question. Am I mistaken in thinking that you put systems in place to ensure that whether you are there or not, whoever steps in is, by reason of that system, able to run the court efficiently?
Definitely, CJ. And if I may say this, the DJP is a very able man, both in terms of the leadership of the division and generally as a judge. He has the advantage of also having acted at the Constitutional Court. So what I mentioned about colleagues feeling comfortable to come to me for advice will still happen because he has also acted there. So one thing for sure, there is not going to be a vacuum in the division.
Commissioner Nyambi?
Thank you, CJ. Morning,
Morning,
JP.
Commissioner.
Mine is only one question. I was a little bit worried, but I was comforted when CJ said at some stage you have to have a way of getting the names of those people that are problematic. So my only question is in relation to cordiality in your division and in Concord is totally different to the situation in the SCA.
Definitely.
So I don't want to assume and interpret my understanding of what you are telling us, but why are you opting to go to that situation, in your own words?
I think that I can be part of the solution to that problem. I enjoy the work at that court, and I don't think that colleagues should be discouraged to go to that court merely because of the treatment they receive at the hands of a minority of colleagues, because they are in minority.
You strongly believe that you are equal to the task to assist that situation?
I am. That's why I had the courage enough to go to that particular colleague to say, why are you doing this?
Thank you, CJ.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Didiza?
Thank you very much, CJ, and good morning, JP.
Good morning, Commissioner.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. Not so good, though, JP. Not so good because I think at the time at which you have been here, and I'm sure you also are aware of the concerns that women constituencies outside, including the Gender Commission, had decried the fact that there are very few women in the judiciary, and more so in the leadership of the judiciary at various levels. And one was excited when you got appointed as a JP because it started to shift the balance in the leadership of the judiciary, particularly in heading the divisions. So I inwardly have a tension, and that's why I'm saying not so good, because on one hand, it's encouraging that there are more women that have made themselves available for the vacancies in the Supreme Court of Appeal, as it has happened now. But at the same time, one worries what will be the shift in demographics if you were to be given an opportunity to go to the SCA in that division. So that's why I'm saying I have a tension.
Yes.
The issue probably not only in the Free State division, but generally, knowing this background about our concerns in terms of gender representation, what is it that you have done and you will continue to do to ensure that we are able to attract more women to be at the helm of the various divisions and various courts, so that indeed we try to ensure that women's leadership does contribute in the transformation even of those divisions, given what you have done in your own experience. But I'm just saying that, you know, it's one of those things where you say, good, and you say, oh, wow. What would you advise?
I understand your sentiments, Commissioner. In terms of what I have done, I have held the hands of so many ladies, have encouraged so many ladies to make themselves available for appointment to all the courts. I have mentored those that I could mentor. And I will continue to do so, irrespective of where I will be based in terms of a court. I don't see that role ending. I have consciously contacted professional bodies to say, please recommend females that you think have the potential, and they have done so. I will still continue to do so and make those names available to the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal. It's an ongoing process. It's what the IAWJ is all about. I am a member, as I said, so I will gladly continue to participate.
Prof?
Thank you, Chief Justice. Morning, JP.
Morning, Prof.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm also well. You were once a part-time lecturer at UFS.
Yes.
How has that experience prepared you for your career, particularly as a judge? And secondly, the appeal by Advocate Maluleke was upheld by the DCJ. So,
Prof, you're too soft. Maybe the mic should be in the direction your mouth points.
okay. Okay. The first question is, you were once a part-time lecturer at UFS.
Yes.
So how has that experience prepared you in your career as a judge? And secondly, the appeal by Advocate Maluleke was upheld by DCJ. So how did you feel when that appeal was upheld?
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. The experience that I gained from being a part-time lecturer helped me a great deal. It made me a well-rounded lawyer. I always say every experience is beneficial. It doesn't matter what it is. It adds to the whole. So my answer to your question is that it benefited me a great deal, and I was able to interact with the youth, and I like that. The second question, I noted that Advocate Maluleke does say that the complaint was upheld by the DCJ. I'm not sure that that is the correct way of using the word upheld, because in support of that, he attaches a document that requests him to comment on Justice Makhuba's response. My understanding from the letter that he sent is that he was requested to provide more information in the form of comments, but that the appeal is yet to be decided. And the fact that he was requested to comment is not strange at all, because if you have a look at the Act, it makes room for that the appellate body can ask for more information. And even if the appeal itself were to be upheld now, you know, in the true sense of the word, I would take it in my stride. We learn all the time. Judges make mistakes. They are not fallible, not infallible, so they make mistakes, and we learn from our mistakes. So that would be a mistake that I would learn from. The Judicial Code of Conduct mentions it in so many ways that sometimes judges will err in terms of the application of the law or the facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Advocate Norman SC.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice. My question has been taken care of. Thank you.
Honorable Singh.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice, and good morning, JP.
Good morning.
And thank you, Chief Justice, for calling me honorable and not commissioner, because my question...
I will do them interchangeably because you're still honorable whether you are here or in Parliament.
Yeah, no, my question relates to Parliament and trying to understand hierarchies. So I think it was very appropriate that you did that at that time. From my knowledge, and forgive me for my naivety if I don't understand how the judicial system works, but in terms of spheres of government and not levels of government, we have local government, provincial, and national. And then one would think that being an MEC at provincial government is higher in status than being a chairman of a committee at National Assembly. I'm trying to understand the hierarchy in the judicial sector vis-a-vis being a judge president and then being just a judge in the Supreme Court of Appeal. Wherein lies a hierarchy in terms of status and even salary, which is important? I'm just trying to understand that from my own mind. Thank you.
In terms of hierarchy, I'm not sure how to answer this. The judge president is the most senior judge in a division. And if I go to the Supreme Court of Appeal, I will not be in the leadership of that particular court. I will be a judge of that court, a justice of that court. And in terms of salary, I think there's a slight difference in salary. In terms of the status, my answer to you would be, I don't think the status matters so much, because Justice Mlambo used to be a justice at the Supreme Court of Appeal and opted to go back to the High Court. So whether you're moving that way or moving that way, your status is still the same, you are still a judge.
Well, Commissioner, it's different. You become chauffeur-driven as JP. So she's sacrificing, actually. She doesn't care about position. She doesn't care about the benefit of people opening doors for you as if you don't have hands to open. It's a sacrifice in that sense.
But that was the answer I wanted, Chief Justice, to say that she's sacrificing from being a judge president to being an ordinary member and sacrificing a leadership position as well. Yes. Thank you.
Honorable Molemela.
No, Chief Justice, I must raise my dissatisfaction with what you have just done now. I think it's wrong what you said, that she's sacrificing and doing all sorts of things. It's not different to saying people should not congratulate.
I don't understand. You want to debate it now or later?
No,
you want to debate it on air or when we are alone?
It's being said here. I mean, people congratulate people here and you call them to order here.
Okay, raise your point.
And I'm uncomfortable with what you just said. The question is given to her about the difference, and she must answer that for herself.
She had finished.
And for you to come and say she's sacrificing that for opening doors and all that is in a way not different from congratulatory messages that commissioners did before. So you are being complimentary without saying congratulations.
Commissioner Molemela, what are you doing? Are you calling me to order or what? Or are you rising on a point of order? What are you doing?
I'm rising on, I don't want to call it that.
No, I'm adding to what Commissioner Singh is saying, just in case he wants to follow up. I'm raising an additional benefit that she's leaving behind. It's a reality. It's a reality. She won't be chauffeur-driven anymore. She won't be leading a court anymore.
Well, I'm uncomfortable with those utterances.
Yes.
That's a point I
That's
wanted to
noted.
make. Yes.
That's noted.
Thank you very much, CJ. JP, I wanted to raise a simple question. Are you a feminist?
My answer to you is that I believe in equality of sexes.
My question is, are you a feminist?
JP, you may wish to understand what he means. It may help Commissioner Molemela. She has given an answer. You may wish to explain what it means, if you are not happy with her answer.
Are you fighting for the rights of women? That women should be treated the same as their male counterpart, and that anything else that seeks to perpetuate patriarchy, you'll do everything in your power to fight it and expose it?
Definitely, yes, Commissioner.
So why are you reluctant to give out the names of those people who might be engaged in a conduct of masculinity and racism, if you are committed to fight any form of discrimination?
Well, I did say I'm comfortable giving the names over to the Chief Justice, and if that ends up in disciplinary action, so be it.
So what is the point of giving it to us here if you are not going to help us? Because if you say there are such people who engaged in the conduct that you have mentioned, which is unacceptable, without isolating and exposing such individuals, you are planting in our mind a negative attitude that when we see a male person or a white person from the Supreme Court of Appeal, we then treat them with a suspicion that this one looks like the one who's not greeting people. And so we really don't know. You are setting us for some failure, because we'll now look at how people walk, we'll now look at how people express themselves, and anyone that fits your description will then say, maybe this is the one.
I hear you, Commissioner, and similar statements have been made by other colleagues in this room who were being interviewed previously, and they did not name the people in question. I don't feel comfortable in naming them to the whole body and the country at large, and I feel comfortable in disclosing the names to the Chief Justice as the leader of the judiciary.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. JP, you're excused.
Thank you, CJ.